Hello, my name's Niranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 120, and I'll be talking to Parul Chawwa, who has 2 decades of experience in North America, Africa, Australia. Parul is a seasoned business transformational leader specializing in strategic change and digital transformation. Beginning her journey in Zambia, she developed a passion for leveraging technology to create positive impact. Parul expertly integrates the human element into technology advancements, utilizing data analytics, cybersecurity, and AI to revolutionize business processes. She maintains a sharp focus on both employee engagement and shareholder values. As a non-executive director, she offers strategic insight and transformation, governance and risk management to multiple boards, bridging operational realities and strategic objectives. She's passionate about innovative that drives business growth and societal advancements. Parul is particularly focused on education and technology adaptation in emerging markets. She values diverse perspectives and is always open to new connections and collaborations. I trust that you will enjoy the conversation I had with Parul about her transition into not only a world of technology, but also in a cultural aspect of moving from one part of the world to another, which can also be challenging from a cultural perspective too. So enjoy the conversation. Hello and welcome to Parul. How are you?
Good, thank you, Niranjan. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have you on this interview because I'm curious about really delving into lots of different things that we have talked about pre-interview, from your formal expertise, but also maybe leaning into some of your personal experiences and how they kind of meld and jive together, because I think as human beings and as individuals, we present all of ourselves when we walk out into the world, and sometimes that can be overlooked and dismissed. So I'm excited to get into this conversation.
Likewise, the first for me, so I'm excited.
Yeah. And I'm so glad to be your first. And I'm sure you'll have many more. I'm sure you'll have many more for sure.
I hope so. Let's see how this experience is.
Well, here's my first big bold question.
Okay.
What is it you believe about yourself in your career, in your personal life, in who you've become as a person to date? And do you feel, with those waves of experiences that we all have, do you feel that where you're right now defines you in who you are?
What I believe in myself and who I am defines me? No. I think there's so much more to learn. I think that's part of the experiences where with time I've realized I'm constantly reinventing myself. So one of the reasons is I'm always moving. It just happens. It's not a decision. So growing up in Zambia, moving to Canada, then moving back to Africa, then moving to Australia, life has just sort of forced me to reinvent myself, reinvent my career, see which direction I'm heading into, what I prioritize. And I think in the beginning, it was a struggle. It was like, why is this happening to me? The usual questions. Why isn't life easier? But I realized it's, once you accept it and just go with the flow of things, whatever's happening, it's more exciting. It's just, there's so much learning involved in the process. So no, I don't think I'm at that stage where I would say, this is who I am. I think there's so much growth, so much learning still left to do. So yeah, that's what I would say.
But even at that, the growth and the expansion and these big experiences that we get to have, there is somewhat of a definition there, if I may, of who you are based on your welcome for change, your welcome for a different perspective, a different shift, and for change in all areas of your life. It's not just staying stagnant. And I think that also echoes in your professional life in supporting clients, because that's a big component of what you do is change management, right?
Yes. So I think you're right, that the essence of who I am is change. So that's probably what drew me to this career as well, because I'm so good at accepting it and bringing it into my own life that when I have to, show someone how to accept it and you move towards change, it's easier.
Right.
Because I have to go through it day to day. So, but I just don't see it as I've plateaued, this is me. I see it as I'm constantly evolving. When I get to a stage where I'm like, okay, I'm really happy with where I am, I'm plateaued. I hope that doesn't happen. But I love the transformation. I love the growth. So, for example, a lot of people were panicking. We have AI. People, what do we do? I thought as, how do we just incorporate this, learn from it, and then again transform.
Right.
So that's sort of what I'm doing all the time. So when you reached out for the podcast, I was like, I've never done this. This is, interesting. I was like, okay, this is how I learn, go out of my comfort zone, exactly what you're preaching. So day to day, I believe in that completely.
Right. Do you feel that's an element of a calling, a personality, a true attribute in who you are?
I didn't think it was a calling. Although, like most people, you get your horoscope and they say, hey, your calling is to help people. I'm like, okay, well, I'll do it, my day to day. But I just find that the universe sort of brings people to me and pushes me in that direction. So for example, I had someone who reached out to me from Toronto, right? A girl from a community completely outside my network. And I was just posting jobs. I'd actually hired someone whose uncle had posted their CV on LinkedIn. And so I saw it and I said, well, I need somebody who's a developer. Reached out to that person, hired him for a project I was working on for a previous client. And so I said, there's these jobs that people are posting. Let me post them in my network on my profile. And you never know who can see it. This girl saw it, wasn't in my network, reached out and said, hey, I'm really interested in these positions. This is my CV. So I said, okay, let's take a look. Let's go above and beyond. Instead of just introducing her to the hiring manager, let me see what more I can do.
Sure.
So I took a look at her profile, took a look at her CV, and I said, no, you need to start from scratch. Let's fix your CV. Let's fix your profile. These are not the right roles for you. But I wanted to explain to her why. And I felt she was overqualified. I said, there's, you can do better. We can still apply for this, but let's fix your CV. And so I said, let's do a call. I had a call with her. Long story short, we went through the process over 1 or 2 weeks. She reached out to me a week ago. It's been 2 months and said, I got a job. I got doing this, which is actually suited to her profile and it's good for career progression. And I said, I'm so happy. I'm so happy you got a job. Good. And I just did it because I felt if I had that support when I was younger, I would be, I would feel so much better. And so that's the only reason I did it. And then she responded back and said, if I didn't listen to your advice, I wouldn't have gotten this job. And I was like, well, that's it. No, I felt so happy that I could help someone. And I just said, please go out there. If you're someone else who needs help, give them the same advice. That's it.
Forward. Yes.
Yeah, pay it forward. That's an example of where someone just reaches out to me and I make sure that I help them because I would have liked it if someone did it for me. And
that's right. It's beautiful.
And that's the advice I give to everyone. Just do that.
Yes.
And that's good enough. I mean, that's good enough.
It is. Beautiful. I love that. So you're calling in that. Her. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's it. You and I think if you start with that experience, she's the moment when she's in my position, let's say 20 years later, and someone reaches out to her, she'll pay it forward. She won't be like, I don't have the time for this, or I'm a consultant, this is what it's not about that. Right. Not everything can be valued in monetary terms. You have your career, but helping someone who's not at that same stage of life, I think it's our duty, right? Mm-hmm. And another side of it as women, we're always like, women should help women. We have to support each other. This is part of the cycle. You start the cycle, and then it, and it continues.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm hoping I'm contributing to it. That's it.
Well, it seems like it. It seems like you're listening to an inner part of you to support others and trusting that who you do support, they will in turn continue that. Because I think that's part of the process of those who are willing to receive it are also those who are willing to give it.
Yes, I've also realized that. It took me some time to realize that as well. Yeah, that's
part
really
of
good.
life,
That's
right?
really good advice. Yes.
That's part of life, though.
Yeah.
So why would we rob somebody else of the gift of giving if we can't receive it? Because we know there's 8 billion, probably 8 billion people in the world who have a hard time receiving.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Which I don't understand, to be honest.
Yeah.
Your advice is great.
So, but it's robbing me. It's robbing me of the experience of what it feels like to give if you don't receive.
Yeah.
Because the joy that you get for giving all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I don't get to feel that.
That's true.
That's
I don't know
not
why people don't
cool.
want free advice, though.
Huh?
I don't know why people refuse free advice. I don't know.
Because they're perhaps fearful of change.
Yes, that is true. That is true. That is very true. Yeah.
Yeah. So understanding what maybe intrinsically is your calling, knowingly or unknowing, is to help others and to be that maybe anchor. I don't know if that's the right term for you. So they can change because you're there holding space and being in a position of guiding them through it. Right.
I would like to feel like I'm just like a pawn in their journey, and they continue. And then they reach out to whichever person or whatever they need at that moment in life to support that, to get to where they need to be.
Yes, exactly. But it's a journey in itself, right?
Yes. I think it's a journey for all of us.
All of us, yeah. For us to be able to witness it, which I think is a beautiful gift.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But also in your career standpoint of being in that position of seeing the change in an organizational structure, be it a team, a whole department, the actual company itself, watching that shift, I think maybe more rewarding because then you're not impacting just one person's life, which we know the ripple effect happens. However, doing it in a department where it's more welcomed by an organization, I think possibly is more rewarding. What's your perspective on that?
I don't see a difference personally. I do see where you're coming from. That probably is more rewarding for more people, especially because people revere their career a lot more than just an individual, helping one single individual. But I think because I'm doing change instead of project management, the change portion of it is focused on people.
Right.
So at the end of it, what's still rewarding is that one person who understands the system, who understands my training, who feels like they came in, they don't know what's going on. And then I've, gone through the steps, gone through that process. And at the end of the change, they're like, we're in a great place. You see their transformation, you see their confidence build up. That's the reward. Right. So I'm not so active on social media. So, Facebook, Instagram, I'm not so active. So my most active platform is LinkedIn. So a lot of times you find clients I've worked with. Obviously, I'm working with the people. So you'll see these people who I haven't connected with. Time's moved on. It's been 10 years. They'll reach out to me and say, oh, thank you for that one time where you helped me with this. And I'll be like, wow, you still remember? You still remember me? And then I look at their profiles. I see their career journey and I'm like, oh, look at where you are now. And then I do want to connect back and say, okay, how are you doing in this new organization? Right. Have you learned any new skill sets? So obviously I haven't, spent that much time, but I think it is something in the future that I would consider moving back and reaching out to the people I have supported. So I see this on a day-to-day, and that's the reward. Yeah. You've touched people without realizing, Absolutely. You've made an impact in their lives, and Absolutely. That's it. There's nothing better than that. Like it gives life purpose. It makes you feel like what you're doing has more meaning than just getting a paycheck. So that's the beauty of it. Yeah,
it is, and it is a beautiful thing. Absolutely. Yes. The add-on to that is in my world, you tackle, I guess you tackle the tangibility of it. So the skill set, the roles, the position, the tangible third dimensional pieces of it. Whereas in my world, I tackle none of that. So I tackle the untangible.
Very internal. Yes.
The energetics, the feelings, all of those that are really harder to quantify, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah. It's much harder. What you're doing is much harder.
But in the same token, it's equally rewarding when you can walk into a room or you can have a conversation with somebody that you might have had conflict with in the past. And you're now in a position of having a smoother relationship or feeling more confident to ask for that raise and welcome that element of change of role, direction, whatever that looks like, to support somebody else. So when you see that and you package all of that together, that's where magic happens, from my perspective.
That's true. I was thinking, because I was going through a podcast and I was like, if I had you in a room and I had all these stakeholders who are so resistant to change, sometimes my mind is just, why are you so difficult? Why are you so resistant? This is great for you. This is great for your learning. This is great for the organization. Everyone benefits. Just open your mind. So I was just thinking, if I had you in the room with me, sparks would fly, because I'm the outer, you're the inner, and there's so much to be learned.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I hope more organizations do this. Actually,
I hope so too.
Get their leaders to focus on just channeling that change.
And to welcome it. I mean, but in the same token, this is something that also drew me to your profile, and when we connected and had a pre-interview, our previous conversations about your elements of change in all facets of your life, because often individuals get stuck or find challenges in their professional external life because of their own core values or their belief systems or their structure of their fundamental aspect of who they are gets stuck. And I see that change, and almost like you fling your arms open to welcome it in your own life. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because
liberating.
You can see that actually dominoing in your professional life.
True. Yeah. True. I would add on to it. So with COVID and all the challenges in the past few years, you find, obviously, as you progress, you see a lot of the younger generation coming into the workforce. There's a lot of stress and anxiety, a lot of anxiety. There's so many people I work with who are like, we can't sleep. And I was like, why not? I was like, I can sleep 8 to 10 hours. I have no issues sleeping. I can wake up still stressed and be like, okay, I need to do some work. But I sleep, I relax, I still, try to keep a work-life balance. You have to prioritize yourself. You shouldn't get worked up because there's change at work. There will always be change.
Absolutely.
You can't escape it. And I find, in terms of learning, like I'm a big proponent of continuous learning, never stop learning. So even the change principles, everything that's being taught now in terms of change management is about change as an individual. Historically, it was always change as a profession, as a career, organizational change. Now they're realizing, no, we need to teach. If you're good at bringing those principles into your own life, as in terms of individual change, then you can do the same thing for an organization and for other people. So, the dynamics are changing, and I think people need to be more just, open, relaxed. Like, don't keep so much stress, anxiety in your life.
Yeah. But that in itself, I believe, is a learned skill.
I think so too. Unfortunately, with experience.
It's a learned skill that we attach to certain labels and certain titles that perhaps give us a little bit of a pass to say it's okay, he or she is not fulfilling, because here's a label that will mask that, so they can stay under the radar and not really have to look at certain things, which we know has been so prevalent in the medical system.
Yep, that's true. Very true.
And now it's just being amplified even further in the mental health space.
That's true. And I think important to say your past does not define your future or who you are today.
It doesn't, but how many
You
people
shape
actually
it.
say that,
I
but
don't know.
don't
People don't.
do
They
it?
don't. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, I know they don't act on it. I don't know why.
Right?
But
So what?
I hope maybe us spreading this message. I hope people, listen. I really
Yeah,
hope people listen and say, how can I,
absolutely.
welcome
What does
more
that look
change?
like? What does
Yeah.
that look like?
Yeah.
What do you feel are some of the attributes for you that connect you to supporting others and being that transformational catalyst, if you will, in the corporate space, but also in your own space and wanting to give back? What are those attributes and traits that you have harnessed or have developed so beautifully?
I think it's just being relatable, is what I say. Because I accept change and I'm, just accept it in my life as a whole, I think it's easy for me to relate to people from all
Right.
walks of life. So
Right.
whether that's culturally, whether that's geographically, I can relate to them. So if
Yeah.
they have any, structural problem, depends on the industry, obviously, but it doesn't matter what walk of life they're in, what structural problem they're facing, what organizational problem, I can relate to it and find a solution to it. So I think that's what differentiates me as well from other people.
Right.
So I've experienced it because some projects are so large, you work with multiple change managers, you work with multiple directors at the same time, and you see the perspectives that they're giving. A lot of times it's a one-stop all, it's a one solution for every problem. So a great example is you come in with change. There's a lot of people who reach out to me and say, hey, let's collaborate, let's do this. I'm like, fantastic, let's have a call. We have a call, and so I was like, we have this issue. What do you think we should write about? A standard, which is very common, is, oh, we could do focus groups. We could have surveys. I said, okay, great. But I said, if you send me a survey, I will know how to manipulate it to get the response that I want you to know.
Exactly.
It's way too easy for me to do so. Also, I said, if you're working for a small organization, you have 5 or 10 members of staff, they know it's easy to be identifiable, especially if you're the only person who's resistant to the change.
Of course. Yeah.
But so how does that work in that scenario? So, there's not that thinking where let's think out of the box. It's very generic. This is what was taught in school. This is what I read. Let's do a focus group. I'm not so comfortable speaking in front of everyone. So I will hold my opinion back. But what do? Do you put me in a room with you? But if I'm resistant to you, I don't want to be in a room with you and have that conversation.
Right.
So this is where I find a lot of the leaders have the same sort of approach, like the cookie cutter. So I come in and say, let me analyze, let me see first, understand the scenario, understand the people, and then go in with a solution. It's not just, let me throw these solutions off the bat. This is what we're going to do. And so I find, again, that comes with experience. That comes with working with different groups of people, different cultures, just different countries, a user group at an organization in Zambia versus an organization in Canada, in Toronto, even Toronto versus Montreal, very different dynamic.
Very different animals.
Right? So now you imagine different continents. So you have to understand that and be open to resistance at the same time. Don't take it like, oh my God, why is he being, like I do think it boggles my mind, but at the same time, I'm like, no, this might be good because I could be learning from what they're saying at the same time.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's like you say, stress is required. We had that conversation where you're like, we need some amount of stress in our life.
Absolutely.
We bring that back. We do need some resistance. We do learn from it as well.
Right.
As change proponents, we do learn from it. We take it back and think, okay, I didn't think of that. So it's good. I worked in insurance for a long time. And a lot of insurance, so it's insurance, financial services. There's this mindset where we don't want more competition, but competition's good.
Absolutely.
It fosters innovation. So it's actually good. Yes. So I learned that from that industry and I apply it now wherever I go.
Good.
So yeah, that's what I would say is those are the traits.
Yeah. In that element of talking to leaders in the leadership role or in roles where there is influence, who and what do you feel are areas, be it sectors, industries, or maybe even countries, where they were perhaps a little more challenged in welcoming change? Is it a sector? Is it a sector like insurance, or is it Did you notice it more in a country, maybe like Toronto or Montreal, or maybe in Zambia or where you are right now? Did you
Depends on
notice
what
it
kind
there?
of change you're referring to.
So
Depends on the type of
what
change.
would you say would be the biggest, the most challenged type of change? Not like a big reorg, but
Yeah,
perhaps as human nature, sometimes the
yeah.
smaller changes are the most hardest ones.
Okay, okay. That is true. That is true. It's so I can give an example. You let me know if it answers your question.
Absolutely,
So I
yes.
find so if we look at geographically, so the challenges faced in Zambia early on were lack of technical skill set.
Right.
For obvious reasons. There was lack of an investment. There's more coming in now. There's more incubators on the ground who are, bringing the youth, giving them that potential, that platform
Yeah.
to learn.
Right.
But historically, that was lacking.
Okay.
And so I love technology. So I have that tech background and I love learning. There's a new app, whatever comes on, I want to learn it.
Mhm.
So I wanted to obviously spread that knowledge, when I was younger, I was like, oh, I know this. Let me teach it. Let me bring it into the institution and see what they can do with it. They have a problem, this can solve it.
Right.
But they didn't want to learn. It was challenging, right? And I just felt, okay, but if you spend enough time on anything, you can learn it. And then
Yeah.
obviously with experience and maturity, you realize, no, not everyone is good at technology. Not
Mhm.
everyone just picks it up. But that obviously took me time. I had to mature. I had to get out of that youth phase where it's like technology is easy. And obviously it's easier for everyone when you
Right.
pick it up when you're younger.
When you know how.
But
Yeah.
not everyone grows up with a laptop at home or a
Right.
desktop. I mean, not everyone has a TV. There's
Yeah.
people who are like, we got a TV when we were 18. So it's
Mm.
a different market
That's right.
from when it was to what it is now. So that was a struggle, and I didn't understand it. But now I'm like, okay, there would be a better way for me to introduce these tools or to find proponents. Like now, when you study about change, and like you find people who are willing to teach others. So you teach them, and they're motivated, they're excited about the change, and then they go on and spread the word, like a
Right.
coalition army,
That's
they call
right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's ways of now I've learned. Okay, there's other ways to introduce that change
Nice.
or learning. And then I would say geographically in Western Australia, which is where I am now, I
Mhm.
think it's so isolated from the rest of the world.
Mm.
That's my take, obviously. Don't want to get in trouble. But I find it so isolated. So culturally, they're not as aware.
Mm.
100%. They're not as aware. It's just, they're not exposed to it. It's just a lack of exposure. But I find exposure brings a different mindset and different thinking. That's what it introduces into anything that you do. So the out of the box thinking isn't there. They're not so creative. They're not so open to different ideas. It's very, this is how we've been doing it. And the bigger industries are mining. So this is how the mining industry does it. This is how banking is. So we have to follow their steps. We have to follow their lead. Lack of
Yeah.
innovation. Not necessarily. Yes, they do things correctly. I mean, they're big powerhouses, but at the same time, change has to be customized to your organization, to your people, your needs, and what phase of the life cycle you're in. But yeah, I think a lot of leaders miss the boat on that, for sure. But it's just a lack of exposure. Again, if you were there and you said, be open to more change, accept it internally, it would change the ball game.
Yeah. I find that really interesting, even though there's elements of exposure, is what you're saying.
Yep.
Perhaps intrinsically, my mind takes me to curiosity. So even though there is
Okay.
no exposure and there is no, or a limitation of
Limitation.
opportunities,
Yeah.
but the curiosity is what, from my perspective, leans into bringing about change. So that is where the seed of awareness comes in. So I recognize that there are 4 steps to an action, to completing a task, be it corporate or at home. But by adding an extra 2, it takes the stress out of it, the individual. So being curious and open to seeing what if
Yes.
we added
Yes.
that additional component into it, how would it change the outcome? And how would it change the outcome to the individuals doing the task?
Yes. Yes.
So
What's the
while
solution?
what's the solution? Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
Being curious. Being
The only way,
curious.
I agree completely. I agree. The only way I see that happening, so there's a big focus. I shouldn't say this. I mean, I'm a consultant, but there's a big focus on consultants here, right? In Australia in general, well, in Western Australia in general. I think the problem is we do our job, there's a change, we implement it, and then we leave.
Right.
And then that's it.
Right.
And that mindset shift, they had it for that period of time. Then they go back to their business as usual. And it's back to normalcy. There's no change. No one's preaching about it. But change is constant, right? Not in a stressful way, but the world's changing around you. So as institutions, you have to constantly change, be innovative, be creative, be supportive of people, you know?
Yeah.
We're transforming day to day. So you have to transform as an organization. Yeah. I think this, and I don't know if you agree, but I think the solution is we have to, or these organizations have to have a change component in their organizations.
Right.
So hire consultants, yes, although they won't have a job, but at the same time, build that change component in your organization. You know, have change managers, have people who focus only on transformation in your organization. Right. I think that will ensure they're always staying creative, and I think it will help them shift that mindset. Right. That's what I would recommend.
But that also goes in alignment to a very strategic position. So then a very strategic position has to work in tandem with the change managers in the organization or consultants to say, this is our forward projection, this is our plan, this is what it's going to look like. And coupled with consultants, then it can perhaps transition much more smoothly.
Well, eventually they don't need consultants. Short-term consultants are great. I think short-term consultants are great because they help you just with design thinking. They help you think outside. Let's find a solution to this problem that you haven't thought of. You know? And also sometimes what happens is you have leaders in an organization and people are like, we've heard what he has to say or she has to say. And they're just not paying attention. They don't take it as seriously. You bring someone from outside and say, hey, I just brought this consultant in. They have this experience. They're going to help us open our mind. And everyone shows up to training excited and saying, this is new. It's the same process, but they'll listen to you because they feel you're a leader in your space.
That's right.
So that's why I think you need consultants. But long term, build that division, build that department in your organization, build it in the structure. Exactly. I think it's so important. And then obviously you're focused on the internal. That is so important. Organizations are not doing that. Have someone in there that's there for just to speak to people and say, what are your needs? Right. No one's doing that.
But it's been open, and it's been in a position which I'm sure is perhaps something that you come across in the corporate space of being okay with being uncomfortable for a short period of time and then going back to default mode. So for instance, the big holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, we know these things, and weddings and funerals, we know we're going to meet people that we're uncomfortable with. And we just grit our teeth, hold on for life and get through the damn thing. And then before you know it, you've surpassed that experience and you've gone through it.
Sure.
And then behaviors just default kicks in.
I think it's easy.
It is easy, absolutely. But it's that element of fear, which is a big component that you bring in of saying, I understand it's difficult and I understand it's painful, but it doesn't have to be. So let's just create some room so you can breathe and feel into wearing something uncomfortable that you wouldn't normally wear. Because that's really all it is.
Triggers, right? Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's certain triggers that just show up in your life and you have to think, how do I incorporate this? What do I do now?
Yeah.
So I think that also take a pause, step back and think, don't react immediately. So I think that's something. So I had a Reiki master. I don't know if you know, you must know Reiki.
I do,
so
yes.
so one of my uncles was a Reiki master. He passed on, but obviously he was sick for a while, so we're very like, okay, it's time, we're happy, you're in a better place. Yeah. But I thought of it and I said like, he was so knowledgeable, that was his life, and I said, he never wrote any books. He was just passing it on as a teacher to everyone that came his way. And I felt it's such a shame that he couldn't share that knowledge with everyone. Just pass it on for someone to experience that wealth of knowledge. And his master was one of the original, I guess, creators of Reiki from Japan. And so we had this whole lineage where I said, that's lost,
Yeah.
And that made me think, okay, I need to go out there and also share my knowledge so someone can benefit from it and pass it on.
Right.
So that's one of the examples where I felt, oh, that was a trigger moment in my life where it made me realize I should be more supportive of others. I should pass on more knowledge. I'm not doing enough. So I think people need to see that whatever happens in your life, use it for the good, use it for the positive. You make a difference.
Exactly. And it adds that additional humility.
I think
in one's perspective. So.
Yeah, it's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Never think of it that
beautiful.
way.
Yeah, it's humility, because it's what else can I offer that is I don't recognize as a gift for me, but other people see it, just like you said. That one person who you followed up with, and all of a sudden they said, do you realize how much of an influence you had on my life, and you did this, this, and this, and this?
I never realized that. But there's a lot of people who've done the same for me as well, right?
And that's where that's the magic.
Yeah. Like, you probably don't realize right now. You've probably opened a can of worms.
I feel like I did. I feel like I did, but it's beautiful, that's part of that process. It's part of that opportunity that we get to experience, because not everybody welcomes it.
Okay.
So yeah, what are your intentions with all of this, other than supporting and guiding people on their journey and on their path, and organizations?
Yes.
What else do you want to do with all this beautiful knowledge and wisdom you've learned and grown into? What else?
Eventually, long term?
Short term, doesn't matter, because we know that's going to change too, right?
Aside from acquiring more knowledge?
Yeah.
Like a checklist of information
I
need to learn still. Yeah, there's a lot of things I still want to learn, certifications, a lot more designations, just knowledge that I feel could change my perspective or make my day-to-day better.
Right.
Yeah. As a person, in terms of my career, there's a lot of, my husband knows, there's a lot of information I've ticked off the full list. So I have a plan of, I'd say my plans for the next 3 years from an educational standpoint. I have a plan. From a career standpoint, like I said, now I'm here in Western Australia. So I do see the gaps that exist. So one of the things that I do want to do is go to organizations and say, you need to build this gap, this change mindset internally. We need to build that in the organization. So I hope I can start that process. I did join an organization. They reached out to me to be a writer in analytics because I have an analytics background. So when they reached out to me a few weeks ago and said, hey, so how's the article coming? I said, is anyone doing an article on analytics and change? So data and change, because, we can blend the two. And they said, no, most people are doing AI, which is, everyone goes towards that. And so I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm hoping that can also bring about, some change in the industry where let's combine data and change. Our focus is people, but we should involve data analysis. And so I'm trying to see how we can mesh the two spaces together. So that is also the next 12 months.
Yeah.
And beyond that, we'll see.
Well, then that's a revisit, right?
We'll see.
Yeah, it's a revisit. But I think the data component is a beautiful connection for those very left-brain thinkers of, give me the facts, and that'll be a clear.
I'm a big visual person. You give me a fact, I'll say, let me Google it. right? You said, that's who I am. I said, no, it's not that I don't believe you, but I want to see it. I'm very visual.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's something we also consider in change. It's very fixed. We do training this way. We'll give you PowerPoint slides. Email us if you have questions.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants to. Not everyone's comfortable doing that.
Very much true. Very true.
I'm trying to find different ways of meshing those two spaces, and we'll see.
Beautiful. Yeah.
We'll do a catch up.
We will, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm excited for you, and I'm curious to see how it's going to unfold in not only your business, but in your own transformation, which then gets rippled out to the rest of all you touch and don't, because it's still there energetically, right? I mean,
and I'll look back on this.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm excited for you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, likewise,
your wisdom, your insight, and all of the beautifulness that you share. So appreciate you being open and vulnerable, if I may.
Thank you.
In sharing. So thank you so much.
Likewise. I do have a follow-up question.
Absolutely. Yes.
Since you did ask me what my plan is, I want to know what your plan is.
My plan?
Your growth. Yeah. For the next, let's say, 5 years. Good enough.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but I know relatively in terms of continuing the support of individuals on their own inner transformation, assisting further in the energetic world, which is my wheelhouse and which is where I live and breathe a lot of the time, but also melding the two together to determine what does business look like in a very, what's been traditionally positioned as a very patriarchal, masculine-driven energy formula, and how can we bring together the feminine energy, which is a softer but yet assertive, and more compassionate, so there is more of a balance in how business is conducted, regardless of the physical gender of what people look like, but empower leaders, workers, whomever are working in these corporations, and maybe even the fundamental structure of these corporations, to have that balance of both the doing and the being. And what does that look like as they move forward in delivering their services to other, be it business to business or business to consumer? And what are they offering? Do we really need all that other stuff still? So there's a lot there. I know that was a really big answer.
You said a lot. You said a lot about it.
And there's even more than that, but we'll hold that one for next time. But that's, what does the energies, we're in a place of transformation on the planet always.
Yes.
But it's really amplified over the last couple of years. So since this thing called COVID happened, since then it just got cranked up. The energetics of the world have amplified even further. So I'm excited to see and guide people through that transition. It's important.
I'm excited too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I look forward to next time. I feel like there will be one.
Yes. Let's continue to help other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.